Forgive me, as I'm never sure where to begin telling a story. I never was a storyteller. I tend to include useless information and jump around, so I'll do my best to do this story justice, considering it happened to me and the ones I love, changing us forever. I never really gave it much thought. I was under the impression everybody had the abilities that I do. I would be reading an article in some teeny bopper magazine about a beloved pop star, and suddenly an image would enter my mind of a frazzled young woman with wild dark hair, panicking about the article being completed in time for publishing. I of course have no way to verify that this flash was at all what she was thinking as she wrote it, or if that even described her appearance, but it was eerie nonetheless. There is also my knowing the next song that would come on the radio, right down to humming any particular song, flipping on the radio and have it playing, sometimes right where my humming of the tune left off. Even now, as a habitual skeptic, I'm willing to argue radio stations only play about 10 different songs all day. But again, it's still eerie. And part of the reason I always thought this was ordinary was because I would often come across people like me. My old band's lead guitarist who claimed to be able to hear people's thoughts. His daughter who said she could see auras. Sean, my friend, who sold me my house, who can sense the dead and help them pass on to the afterlife. My friend of over 10 years, Charles, who always knows someone is about to call him before the phone even rings, and other things similar to my own experiences. There's also my lifelong friend Sarah, who sees black shadows surrounding people who wish to do harm to others. A former coworker named Tasha who, on a regular basis, had to burn sage in her home to stop something from throwing dishes around her kitchen at night. And last but not least, my husband. As a small child, he climbed to the top of the stairs in his childhood home to find a man dressed in military fatigues and a bloody dot on his forehead, who simply told him, "Don't do it." He was terrified, but eventually forgot about it. Until one day he was 18, he looked up in the mirror while brushing his teeth and realized the guy on the stairs was himself. That year he dropped out of ROTC. But as I grew older and got out into the world, the more I found out that I'm actually pretty weird. Sean said he rarely meets people like us. A staunch atheist, I don't even believe in this crap. Yet it was all around me and being told by people I respect and trust more than anyone. I fear I'm once more adding too much information. Perhaps I feel a need to defend my experience as I can almost hear the skeptics now. I am a skeptic. I tried to explain all this away. Hell, I wanted to. And since I can't speak for others, I might as well assume all those friends of mine are completely making all that stuff up. It's fine with me. But I know what happened last year, and I'll go ahead and tell it now. These abilities of mine waned as I got older, or I learned to ignore them. But after I had my son, things escalated quite quickly. He was a rather horrible sleeper. In fact, he still is. So I'll be the very first to say I was exhausted his first 6 months of life. Sleep deprivation can do some crazy things to you, but that doesn't explain everything. One night around midnight, I woke up in the faint glow of the nightlight. I could see the bathrobes hanging on the back of my bedroom door, which meant that the door was shut. We never shut our bedroom door at night. Ever. And at the time, we didn't have a baby monitor, so it was a strict rule. Leave the door open. The bathrobes even helped it naturally swing open. And so, I was confused. But when I heard my child's screams, I instantly woke up completely. I bounded out of bed and growled to my husband, "Why would you shut the door?" And he groggily insisted that he hadn't. Annoyed, I ripped the door open and went across the hall to the baby's room. I bent over his crib and searched for his pacifier, all the while shushing softly and trying to soothe him. And that's when I heard it. Next to my ear, his heartbeat bear was going off. I had turned that thing off at 8 p.m. It wasn't helping my son sleep, and it was getting annoying having to constantly reset the touchy timer. If you didn't click it back into the off position and wait long enough before turning it back on, no sound would come out. If you twisted the dial too fast, no sound would come out. So I had said, F it, and turned the damn thing off and left it off. Now let me be clear, at 4 months of age, my son was not pulling to standing. He did not have the fine motor skills to hardly pick up his own pacifier yet. The idea of him standing up, reaching through the crib slats to the back of the bear, and blindly but perfectly turning the bear on and making sound come out, is downright laughable. It's like something out of that stupid Baby Genius movie. I couldn't explain it. A brand new bear with practically new batteries that had never turned itself on before and couldn't have possibly clicked itself into the on position was beating next to my ear. Our son slept in our bed for the rest of that night. I contacted Sean the next morning. I'd spent all night trying to understand how my door had shut itself, how a bear could turn itself back on. I kept reluctantly coming to the same conclusion. I was desperate for an answer, and Sean said he could come over in a few days. Just in the meantime, tell it, whatever it was, to leave us alone. The next few days were excruciating. Sleepless nights and long days of feeling followed in my own house. Of feeling like an idiot when telling an empty room to leave me alone. As Sean's visit grew near, activity in the house ramped up. Shower curtain rings would make sliding sounds on the curtain rod. There was knocking on the living room walls. And my baby crying and looking at something just past me. Sean performed a ritual using a crystal to communicate with the spirit. Sean claimed that the spirit, a sad old man, had seen me and my baby out somewhere and attached himself to me. He hung out in the baby's room, but he liked my room the best, and Sean asked if he meant us any harm, if he meant to wake the baby. Both were answered by swinging the crystal to say no. But we got a yes when asked about my closed door and the bear. Sean helped him pass on, and I watched as the crystal went from circling to a dead stop. Sean had to come out one more time. We'd invested in a video monitor at this point, and on one particular hard evening, we sat in our son's pitch-black room and watched on the monitor to see if he stirred after we set him down. Now, I don't entirely remember why or what we were hoping to accomplish through this. I just knew that we were tired. Then, in an instant, things went from calm to upsetting. Flying over his crib, 2 feet from where we stood, something appeared on the monitor for only a second. We had been there for about 45 minutes at this point, and we knew there was no bug or fly. And besides, it didn't have wings. There was nothing physically there to explain what the hell had just appeared on the screen. Just a ball of white on the night vision monitor, flying over my son's bed. I angrily left the room in tears. Why? Why was this happening again? And Sean agreed to come over the very next night. Now, I don't remember this visit as well. I mostly remember being angry and confused. Sean said this time it was a young woman who had passed away before she could have a baby. She loved babies and was sad she could never have them. I should have felt bad for her. I should have had sympathy. But I was pissed. Not only were these events negatively affecting our lives, but they were also making me question everything I had held as true about the world. And so Sean had to sit me down and explain a few things. He told me I was what he called a lighthouse. Just as lighthouses guide sailors to land, I was a beacon of light to spirits who were lost in between worlds. I'm someone who will notice them and lend some legitimacy to their confused state of existence. I'll hear them knock on my walls and know it is them. They're not attaching themselves to me out of malice. They just want my help. I insisted I wanted nothing to do with them, and Sean understood but said I can only ignore it so much, as there will always be at least a little light emanating from me. Now I don't tell anyone this story, and I'm even submitting it under a different name in the hopes that no one will ever attribute it to me. But I tell it because something has recently occurred to me, and I've decided the story must be told. These kinds of experiences did not happen to me before motherhood. I had funny things happen, like correctly guessing the song that was about to play, or unwittingly surrounding myself with people who hold unique abilities. But as far as I can tell, I never got visits from spirits. I never had to tell an invisible entity to leave me alone before. It wasn't until my son arrived on this earth that these things started happening in our home. And then, it finally hit me. As his mother, I must protect him. Because I am not the lighthouse. He is.